then you get to the root, which is the spiritual body. That's where God exists.
what a
That's
great
where
picture.
God is being fed.
Wow.
Ooh, I like that.
I like that.
I don't think I've ever heard that, but I like
you ought
it.
to rewind that a little bit, Rogers, and
Yeah.
kind of just get that in your head right there. That was really good, Rev. Man, I love that. Okay.
Without God, the tree dies. The
Yeah.
mental body, all the other bodies just die.
Right.
But
right.
God lives by itself. You live as a spirit by yourself, but not all.
That's a taste of Beyond Quick Fixes. It's about your root. This week's episode of The Wise Guys, a podcast that unleashes the unthinkable in culture, religion, business, and everyday life. This week, the guys will relate our expectations to our degree of willingness to do the foundational work. So, it's time to step over the line, strap in, and see if you are willing to let Mac, the Rev, and Coach Stu take you to a place of thinking differently.
Welcome to the Wise Guys podcast, where we unleash the unthinkable, step over the line to help us see things differently, and go to the inside edge. Hi, I'm Mac, and I'm your host. And in this episode, we're going to talk about expectations, which we all have, correct? About all kinds of different things. It's about prudence, though. It's about trust in the unseen and natural laws and the confidence that you have in your process, but not in quick fixes. And that's what our culture loves to go for, the quick fixes. But we're going to we're going to kind of diss that a little bit tonight. Yep, I'm going to be honest with you. But here we are. Once again, got my wise guys, man. All right, Rev.
Oh, good to see you.
Gotcha,
I
brother.
love to be playing in the unseen.
Oh, yeah, the mystery, right? That starred us. Coach Stu,
Hey, guys.
the coach is in the house, man.
So good to see you.
Love
I
that.
love
Both you guys.
sitting here at the round table.
So cool.
And hello and welcome to all of you beautiful exotic cocktails out there.
Yeah.
You're metaphorically with us at the round table. I love it.
We love it.
Yeah.
That's it.
We
So
feel you. We hear you.
thanks for listening. We love having you with us, and we really always, as always, hope that we're imparting some value into your life. You know, as entertaining as we are, we hope there's some value there, okay? So,
So tonight, they're all going to learn how the fruit in their exotic cocktail got created.
Oh, that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because everybody is unique.
So you I'm going to get to this.
Yep,
So
I know. I'm jumping way ahead.
He's pushing you.
I know. He's getting me along the line. So here's the scoop, though, the fruit, right? So we all just went through Thanksgiving. Everybody, at least in America.
I
right?
ate a
We
lot of food.
We just did. Everybody
Yep.
ate, and they drank, and they, made merry.
We were merry, yeah.
And all that. And Natalie, my wife, she says, okay, all good. I'm glad we did it. We had fun. She says, but, we're going to have to get a little more fruits and vegetables in our diet. And I kind of looked at her like, huh? What are you talking about? I do that already. She says, oh, come on now. Look at what we've eaten over the weekend. And I said, no. I said, here's the way I look at it. When I drink my old-fashioned, the bourbon, what's the bourbon made out of? Corn.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's a vegetable.
Yeah.
And I get some 2 or 3.
How did that fly?
Well, I get 2 or 3 Bing cherries in my drink as well.
There's some fruit.
Hello,
Yeah,
I get a
like
little fruit, get a little
like it.
corn, get a little fruit. And she looked at me and went, that ain't flying, buddy. Okay, you guys both know her, and so that wasn't going anywhere. But I tried, right?
That was a good
I have to
good
say
attempt.
that my favorite dish on Thanksgiving, though, is the green bean casserole.
Oh, as always.
I
You
love
let
it
the
too.
turkey go, but I want to smother it in gravy.
Yeah, I love it too.
Well, we just can be decadent, and we get the permission to do it. So I love it. Okay, it was really good. So there was that. All right, but now we get to move into some of the fun thing that we love to do every week. And that's the words to the wise.
Yes.
Right? And these, if you haven't listened to us before, or if you have, whatever, we take church signs. We just take them and I get to look through several of them, and I'll stick them in the folder and pick one out. And so this one fits the season, without a doubt, as we're kind of entering into this Advent and Christmas season, right? So here's the sign, and we vote.
Cue
This
the
is
angel
sign.
music.
Yeah. we tell you,
We need a theme for
we got to
this.
get theme
We need a
music
theme
for this,
music.
So I'm
yeah.
going to work on that. Okay,
Yeah.
I promise. So here's the sign. Here's what it says. If Mary is the mother of Jesus, all right. If Mary is the mother of Jesus, and Jesus is the Lamb of God.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that Mary had a little lamb? Very clever. Very
That
clever.
would have made me chuckle if I drove by this sign. and saw it.
Exactly.
I
Okay.
probably would have stopped and took a picture.
Well, somebody did because it was
Somebody did.
Exactly.
somebody did.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking, guys?
I appreciate the humor
What do you think?
because you know what? God can handle our humor.
Yes.
You know? So, I mean, so I'm going to give it, so we're rating it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We
Well,
go -3 to +3.
Yeah, you know
Anywhere.
me. I'm going.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to 2 because
Okay.
I liked it and I thought it was fun and funny and I think that God has a big smile whenever we're enjoying ourselves and having fun.
Okay.
Totally agree. I'm
think
going to
so.
see your 2 and raise you one more. You're solid 3. I think the religious world, I want to go to this church because they're probably enjoying their spirituality. They're
I agree.
having fun with their journey back home and their journey to God, and they're dancing with God. I love that.
I
So,
do too.
Total 3.
I hear you.
I mean, and absolutely, God has a sense of humor. Look at the platypus, right? Or, the aardvark,
right.
or whatever.
What would you consider? What if God is humor itself? If God is not humorous, but
Of
God
course.
is just
Sure.
laughing. I'm having the direct experience of God when I'm laughing and I'm smiling
I
and
think
I'm
it's
full
very
of joy.
true. I think
love
that's
that.
Pierre Desjardins said it, joy is the infallible sign of the presence of God.
there it is.
I'm going to call it true.
There we
Instead
go.
of categorizing it, just God is.
Yeah.
Right. I love that.
What do you give it?
So I got to vote. Yeah, I got to
Yes.
vote, and I'm there at the +3 as well because again, just very similar to what you guys are saying here. I love this kind of attitude that's just joyous. That's just let's just have some fun with this whole thing.
So
here.
between us, that's an 8. That's our biggest score to date.
It is. I know. Yeah. I mean, I really do enjoy this kind of thing where people don't get so wrapped around the axle over the dogma and the theology and beating people over the head maybe with the Bible or whatever. And I don't even know their internal theology or what this church even ultimately, but they're having fun with this
The
whole thing.
Hindus have a term called Leela. And that's God's playground. That this is God's playground. Yeah. I think we need
I
to
love
become like a
that.
child and play on the playground a little.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we forget that as adults.
Yes, we do.
We forget to play
Daily.
and to have fun.
Yeah, no, this is so. We're opening this up. We're saying
It's okay to have
more
fun.
fun.
Yes.
All right, have more fun, Rovers.
Yes.
All right. So we are talking this episode about the concept of root and fruit. Mm-hmm. Right, and so that idea comes in whatever picture might come to your mind when we say those 2 words. Probably a tree, but bush, whatever. But a plant, or whatever has up above and below. Again, I'm just being general here because I know there's exceptions to all of this. But we've got a growth that's supported by roots. All right, and let's just kind of keep it simple. All right,
Yep.
and so you try to say, well, let's just foundationally set this and say, well, what are roots? Right. So in the definition of a root, they're usually underground and they function as an organ of absorption, aeration, food storage, and anchorage or support. So think how important that is foundationally to any plant that it's feeding and it's
It's
nurturing.
everything. A tree cannot live without a root. A root can live without the tree.
Right.
But
that's
the
true.
tree dies without the root. It's what's the most important part of
There's
it?
a little insight. Okay.
I like to look at a tree as you've got the outer part, the leaves and the fruit. That's the physical body.
Right.
You follow the branch. That's the mental body. You're getting closer back to home. Then you've got the trunk, which is the emotional body. Then you get to the root, which is the spiritual body. That's where God exists.
what a
That's
great
where
picture.
God is being fed.
Wow.
Ooh, I like that.
I like
I
that.
don't think I've ever heard that, but I like
You
it.
ought to rewind that a little bit, Rogers, and
Yeah.
kind of just get that in your head right there. That was really good, Rev. Man, I love that. Okay.
Without God, the tree dies. The
Yeah.
mental body, all the other bodies just die.
Right.
But
right.
God lives by itself. You live as a spirit by yourself without all the other.
I love that. All right, so we've got the root, that core foundational thing that without there's no life.
Right.
Right. Okay. So then we have the product of it feeds a plant, it feeds a tree, it feeds a seed bearing some sort of plant. Right. And so then you have what we'll call the fruit. All right. Yeah, you can put a lot of different stuff on that, but the product of it. All right. And so that can go lots of different ways. I mean, depending upon what the root looks like and how it's tended and how it's, taken care of and how it grows and what soil it's in and all that good kind of stuff determines not only what kind of fruit categorically it produces, but how healthy is it? Does it taste good or is it rotten? It again, you have this idea in mind, an expectation of good fruit, but have we done the right work ahead of time in order to think that we're going to get
that which is in the darkness is
the root.
feeding that which is in the light. And we've got that so backwards.
Wow.
We're so all about the light, but maybe it's the mystery and the womb of creation where God exists, the darkness where the true goodness happens.
Oh, I want to drop the mic right there, man. Oh, my gosh. I love that, Rev.
Well, it's scary. But you know what? Why do we
man.
close our eyes when we
very cool.
pray?
Yeah.
There's darkness.
Yeah.
Why is it in the most sacred moment of a kiss, we close our eyes? We're going to the darkness. We're getting to the root, to that which is the most important.
Oh, think about that for a second, gang. We're going to have to flesh that out a little bit, all right? The role that the darkness plays in all of this. Oh.
The seed is in the darkness.
Yeah.
In order to become the magnificent tree, it's got to be in the darkness first.
Yeah, it's going to get nurtured and grow and become itself more in that womb, in that darkness.
Then it welcomes the light. Cart before the horse, maybe. We were so concerned about the external and the light.
Yeah.
We've forgotten the darkness is important.
Oh, man. Ooh, love it, love it, love it. So there you go. All right, that this is all maybe new for me. I love that perspective. Okay, I didn't really ever look at it that way.
I haven't either.
All right.
This is new for me.
Very cool. So there we are. So we're going to talk about the root and the fruit. All right. And so one of the examples that I love, I've used this for years and years and years. It comes out of Galatians, right? And so Paul wrote it. If you're anywhere around the Bible, and here's the thing. A guy named Paul wrote this, and it's in the Bible, but it's certainly not exclusive to Christianity, So I don't want to get the idea that we're sharing an idea here that's just exclusive to the Bible, or if you're a Christian. That's not the case at all.
Its spiritual principle is
Exactly.
found everywhere.
We're going to just use it as an example that can be applied across the board. All right.
And Paul's so entertaining anyway.
Well, he's, So this is coming out of Galatians. And if you're a Bible person out there and, you read the Bible and you probably have your favorite, version or translation of the Bible, right? This comes out of the Message. Peterson does a great job in this passage, I think. If you never read, if you don't even like the Message, just go out there to BibleGateway.com or whatever and click on the Message and just read these verses from the Message. All right. So here's what he says in Galatians 5. And I'm just kind of cherry picking.
Oh, here we go.
Hello. I am so sharp, man.
Back to his drink.
Yeah. So here it is out of verse 16. And this would be the root in this chapter. Be animated and directed by the Spirit. This is Paul's advice to the Galatians. All right. He gives them this advice, and if that's where it stopped, it's good advice. All right. Be animated, directed by the Spirit. You kind of got to think, well, how do I do that and all that? But he's going to tie it together. He's going to say, well, if you do that, the root, if you cultivate that, then here's what can happen in your life. All right. He goes on, he says, well, what happens when we live God's way? That root, how is it that we, produce a fruit? What does it look like in our lives? He says God brings gifts into our lives, much the same way that fruit appears in an orchard. So now you just get it in your mind, a peach tree, right? That has this just beautiful fruit, just pulling the limbs down, right? Things like affection for others, exuberance about life, and serenity. We develop a willingness to stick with things, a sense of compassion in the heart, and a conviction that a basic holiness permeates things and people. We find ourselves involved in loyal commitments not needing to force our way in life, and able to marshal and direct our energies wisely with a Z. Right? Okay.
Wisely with
We'll
a
start
Z.
the bidding at $200 for
Yeah.
that kind of life.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
See, this is so beautiful, though. I mean, it can be, again, applied all across the spectrum. If you have the proper cultivation and the work put into the root, it will produce according to its kind. And I want a life like that.
Oh, for sure.
How many? We all want that kind of life. But how many of us are willing to cultivate that kind of life?
There it is. Okay. Hello. All right. This kind of life just doesn't automatically happen.
Right.
All right. It doesn't. You may get some little snippets maybe of this every once in a while. I'm not trying to say you can't. But if you're going to have a life, a fruit, the life that looks like this, you're going to have to.
You mean
work.
you're telling me it's not enough to just want it?
Yeah.
It's not enough to just ask for it or pray about it. I got to do some work.
Rev, you can't just go down the aisle 5 and pick it off the shelf and here we go. I now
Blue
have
light special in heaven.
Blue light special. I now have compassion. Where's the aisle for love? I need some of that.
Yeah, I better probably pick up about 4 or 5 containers, all right? So, yeah, dang, it doesn't work this way. But here's the funny thing. You're going to say to me right now, you're going to say to us, I just said that to you, and you know what you're going to say? I know that. Well, of course it doesn't. I know that. And yet, if you start to peel back your own onion and really look into your life,
You know, it's funny. Onion,
that really part
onion
of it?
is a root vegetable.
that's right. That's true.
Peel
It's under
back
the ground.
yes, it's
Yeah.
under the ground. But you got to peel it back. And how many? Let's be honest. I have to constantly examine how I'm buying into the Western culture.
Yeah.
The culture that we have is I want it and I want it now. I want it yesterday.
Right.
And I really don't want to work at it. As I peel my own onion back, I can fall into the trap of everybody else.
Yep.
Wanting all the good but not willing to work for it.
Right.
I'm there sometimes.
Well, I think we all get there.
Well,
right?
and if you do that, the fruit will not taste as sweet. It just won't. I mean,
Love that.
yeah. I mean, when you are putting the work in, it's the same thing in anything you do, sports, life, relationships.
Right.
You put the work in, it's all the sweeter.
I found that in college. In college, that the students that I was there with that had it all paid for, mom and dad were footing the bill, getting the car, everything was paid for, they dropped out of school. And those that were having to work, I had to work in college.
Oh, yeah, I hear
And
you.
I
did.
appreciated that, and I did not give up on it.
Right.
And so I think there's something to that. It tasted sweeter. My education was
Right.
sweeter.
Well, yes, and I think what we're saying here is that in proportion to. So, in other words, you can put in some work, okay? You can, you can play at it a little bit. You can kind of just, move some stuff around from A to B, and that could be a little work. But again, the fruit that it's going to produce is going to be, in proportion. And when you get into God's economy, everything just goes wacky crazy anyway. But I'm just saying you can have little degrees of stuff that might come into your life. And so you might get some little tiny peaches. They might taste okay, but they're going to be really small.
There's a causal relationship there.
Yeah.
If the cause is the work and the preparing the soil, if you will, the amount of effort I put into it is the amount of the good I'm going to have on the other
That's
side.
right. Yeah, you can't expect to be, a great wrestler. We got the coach in the house here with a little bit of work.
A lot of work.
It takes a lot.
Years and years and years.
It's way more. All right. So you can stop this process anywhere along the line that you want if you're okay with, or if you're satisfied with, or if your expectation is little tiny fruit on the tree. Now, I'm not going to judge that. Nobody's sitting around this
Well, let me
table
tell
is
you,
gonna
I
judge
want
it.
all my Georgian friends to come out to California and taste a real peach.
Here
They
we
call
go.
this the peach state. You guys haven't had peaches like they have in California.
There's
they
the
are
gauntlet.
dripping as you eat them.
Yes.
Must be the
But
good
you never
soil
know.
out there,
It's
right?
like, well, I'm happy with the peach here. It's no big deal. But once you've tasted it, and it's like, holy moly, this is what a real peach tastes like.
Yeah.
It tastes
Right.
like I want to work towards getting that.
Absolutely.
So I just phoned my mom and say, Mom, send me some peaches out here to Georgia.
Put them in a box and send them on. Oh, I love that. Again, it's all. You can't circumvent the process here, gang.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
Well, you got to start with preparing the soil.
You know?
That's work in itself.
Yeah.
There's nothing to show in the world of effects at this point. I'm just going to prepare the soil. What is the soil? It's consciousness.
There
It's
it
what's
is.
going on between your ears. The mental work is important.
Right. That's right. And again, we all know this. We all know that little bits of work produces little bits of results. I mean, we know this intuitively, even between our ears, but when it really fleshes itself out in our life, we don't practice it enough.
It's like a great vending machine. We've treated life like a mediocrity in, mediocrity out.
Right.
And then we kick the machine. Why am I not getting more than mediocrity? Because
Right.
you're not putting it in. It's one thing to know it. It's another to actually act upon it.
Well, it's like the gumball machine. We use this example for years and years and years, right? You put the quarter in, you put the coin in, you turn the crank, and what do you get? You just get the little thing. If you keep putting in the same quarters and the same amount of money, you're going to get the same thing. I mean, the view's never going to change, all right? If you just play at it, I guess is the point, right? So we have this myopic vision in our culture, I think. We just live this way. That the short term is way more important to us than the long term.
Yep.
All right, because we can realize the results much faster, and they're going to be anemic, mediocrity, just like the Rev was saying. They'll be much more anemic than if we're willing to put in the longer amount of time and cultivate it properly and develop a sense that we're going to get over time. And this isn't easy.
Well, the one thing that I've learned is if you focus on the fruit, it's like watching a pot of water boil, right? Like it never happens. Like I don't know how that works, but there's some science behind it. But it never happens, right? So, but if you're just watching the fruit, like it's instead of. So here's the other option, right? I'm focusing on the root, and if we're talking about, personal growth or something, behavior, maybe something like that, you might go into like your core beliefs, your mindset, that kind of thing, right? If I'm focusing, that's the soil, right? If you're focusing on that, and let's say in the back of your mind, I want to be more compassionate, more patient, all those things, right? One day you just wake up and you just are these things,
Right.
You don't have to think about it. It's not like, okay, I did all this work and now I am patient.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Right,
It's all, matter of fact, the way it works for me, I normally see it kind of in arrears. It's like all of a sudden I've spent a couple of weeks being that way, and then it hits me like, oh wow, like I'm more compassionate, or I'm more loving, whatever it is I was trying to get to. I just am those things, and all of a sudden God nudges me and says, hey, guess what?
Right. Well, you're being animated.
You've arrived. You're kinder.
Yeah, you're being animated and directed by the Spirit.
Right.
Well, and I think because you're in the spiritual realm, you're just being kind. You're being kind. You're being patient. You're not doing it to get a result. You're not doing it for the trophy
get those
or
things.
the payoff.
Yeah.
You're just being organically who God chose to be as you. And that is absolutely a spiritual reality. It has nothing to do with this illusory world that we live in. But you are going to wake up. But it's because you're having that immediate boop, the light bulb goes off, because the light bulb was not why you were doing it. It was getting in touch with who God just chose to do business as you.
You know what I hope happens for people when they start thinking about this and they start doing all these things we're talking about? I really hope one of the things that happens is all of a sudden they become aware one day and say, man, I'm really happy right now. I mean, right now we don't have a lot of that.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not saying the whole world is in the sadness zone, but a lot of people are operating on such a fast pace. They forget or miss being happy. It's like it's a blur going by them.
Yeah. Right.
I'm like, stop for a moment, be present. Don't think about the past. Don't think about what's coming up.
Present.
Enjoy something right now.
Yep.
Well,
and
I have
feel
a lot
happy.
more moments like that in my life, and I'm going to just a couple of analogies that I learned. One was my grandmother. Sometimes you have to just get into whatever root you've got and pull it up like a weed. If all you're producing in your life is unhappiness, it's weeds. You got to get down to the root and completely get it out and plant something different.
And start over again.
Release.
That's good.
Let go, start again.
Right. That's a good
and
point.
the other is sometimes you just take, why is this plant not blooming? Why is it not producing fruit?
Yep.
Put it in a different container. Dig it up, which doesn't make sense. I got to dig up. This is the self-examination.
Right, there it is.
Going to dig it up and then put it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Put it where it's a better environment. And I've had times in my life where I got more happy because I simply transplanted my thoughts. I transplanted my feelings. I even transplanted my body to a new place, a different environment, a different group of people I was surrounding myself with, and then I could bloom.
Right.
So that's a really great point. Maybe
Yeah.
your root is fine, but it's just not in the right soil. It's
Yep.
not in a nurturing enough soil.
Right.
Enough
right.
nutrients, so to speak.
And it takes some time. I mean, you planted it in wherever it was to
Mm-hmm.
start with. And as you're going through this process, you heighten your level of discernment, you heighten your level of expectation and all that. And so you're able to realize, okay, that served me to this point. It got me this
Right.
big, or
Right.
it did it. Now it's time to come over here so that I can thrive even,
You have
even
to transplant.
greater.
I started a lemon tree once in a
Yeah.
little 4-inch pot, and it grew, and it did really well. And then it didn't do really well. I had to put it in an 8-inch pot.
Yeah.
Eventually, it was in a 6-foot container, and then the lemon tree just exploded.
Exactly.
But it had to constantly expand the container.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
See, there's-
Transplanting is a good thing.
Absolutely. Then I think if that's happening, you're on the right path. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just say this is a litmus test that says, am I expanding my consciousness? Am I expanding
So is the
you know?
container? Is there a religious container that's a 2-inch pot? Is there religious thinking
Yes.
on the planet
Oh,
that
yeah.
I can't
Yes.
expand it because I need a bigger pot? But no, this is the religion.
The
that's-
environment's
or
not
the
letting
environment, or the family, or the job,
Right.
or the relationship that's a 2-inch pot, and I need a 6-foot so I can bloom.
Yep.
So the root's good, but it's not going to produce fruit unless you expand the container.
Well, there's
Very
you
good.
got all kinds of
I think we're
analogies
going down the same road,
Yeah.
Rev. Last week we were in the same boat. I think today we're going down the same road. So, and I'll just remind everybody, like what you're talking about, Rev, is like maybe you had an experience as a child, or you were taught certain things when you were younger that you didn't re-explore. So maybe the soil that your morals, whatever, your behavior, all that is in, maybe is different as a child than it would be as an adult. If you re-explore that, then it's kind of the replanning process you're talking about.
Exactly. Paul
right?
talks about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So lots of great analogies here, right? You can kind of see where we're going, and hopefully some of this stuff resonates with you, that you have to, you got to remove the blinders. You got to start thinking in greater ways and see in the darkness. I love that. Even when you're pulling up the weeds, where do you got to go to pull the weed up?
Yep.
Yeah,
Into the
into
darkness.
the darkness.
So is the expansiveness we're talking
Okay.
about an internal expansiveness, not an external one? I
Yes.
think it absolutely is.
Yes. So, and I think as you get the discernment, as you move through all of this, you give yourself time to be able to separate out, because we tell ourselves the stories we tell ourselves, boy, right? I mean, oh my goodness. We can start to separate out fact from fiction. All right. So, again, you're able to recognize things in a different way. And you're able now to make better decisions. You'll be able to navigate and make the decision to go into a bigger pot, to be able to do something, whatever it might be. But you're not, if you don't go through this process, then, you're going to be limited.
So the stories we're telling,
That's
fact or fiction, eventually the story I've told over and over and over and over again needs to be let go of.
Let go.
So I can tell a new story. No,
Right.
but I love my story. I love this pot. I don't want to go any big. No, you got to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Got to dig up the root, transplant myself, and start telling a better story.
Exactly. So,
And sometimes
Yeah.
the story you're talking about is something that may have happened, but a lot of times we tell stories about things that haven't happened.
Oh, exactly.
Right? Think about it. Like
Exactly.
we're making something up. Like let's say you got to go up in front of a crowd and speak, right? Think of all the stories you're telling about what's going to happen, which didn't happen.
We borrow trouble from tomorrow.
right.
Right.
Oh, that's
So that's another way to, again, it's all coming back to the present. Stay present.
Yeah.
And what I used to tell my daughter when this would happen, because this would happen all the time for her, as a teenager. I would say, look, and I'd convince her, I'd get her to realize, hey, you're making a story up, right? Like this hasn't happened. Yeah. Okay. I'm like, why are you making it like a bad story? Like, well, if you're going to make a story up, let's make it a good one. Right? I'm saying out there, Rogers, don't even make up the story. But if you're going to do that, make it a good story.
See, this is wisdom. This is WIZE wisdom. All right. So fun. So, I love it, guys. Thanks so much. This is kind of a lead in now into what are some of the stories that we can tell about how this looks like in our lives. Recognize these different things, good and bad. All right. So we're going to take the rest of the episode and we're going to just share some of those, not only from our own life, but give you some examples of all this. So we're going to take a little bit of a break, and then we'll be right back to dive into that. Thanks for listening.
Like what you hear so far? Join us in the Rogue Nation by going to our website, gorogue.life, where you will find links to our social media and podcast channels and a way to subscribe to all our happenings. We encourage you to become a member of our cafe, where you can interact with us and fellow Rogers and keep the conversation going. Please share us and like us. Now, let's get back to our Wise Guys.
All right, welcome back to the Wise Guys podcast, where in this episode, we are talking about the concept of root and fruit. And so I think we've had a lot of fun to this point, chatting about some of our faux pas and kind of how to look at this in the big picture scheme of things. But maybe let's share a little bit more now about how we can use some examples of this in our own lives, more particularly as we tell the stories.
Yeah, let's talk about like where we see this in action. I mean, we've already kind of covered nature, I would say, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the easy analogy to make.
It's a no-brainer.
with this. Right. So I think we've already kind of gone there. But let's talk about like root and fruit when it comes to families or like relationships. Mm-hmm. I say family because everyone can relate to that. But relationships in general, like what does that look like?
Yeah. No, I think that's...
I'm so grateful for the people in my family who caused me to look at my roots. Some of my greatest teachers on the planet, it's like family members that drive me nuts. Just drive me crazy. And it's like I can either go crazy, insane, and blow up, or I can go, why am I so triggered by this family member?
Yeah, right.
And it causes me to look at my roots. So it's a great laboratory for learning about yourself.
Well, we talked a little bit about this in the first half of the episode, but let's take that example of family and the irritant uncle or whatever. We always tell those stories, right?
You mean the fun uncle?
The fun uncle. All right, yeah, whatever. Right?
Tell a different story.
It's a different story. But here's the thing, that if we come into, say, Thanksgiving, we just passed through that, right? So there's all kinds of fun stories about having to go to Thanksgiving and how do you deal with the in-laws and how do you deal with the oddball, whatever. If the root that you're cultivating is one of anger, disgust, even hatred, or whatever those negative feelings that you may enter into that relationship and whatever, then guess what? I mean, it works both ways.
That's what's going to come out.
What a great indicator of the root is the glasses you're wearing. Angry people will find reasons to be angry.
Yes.
People who are hurt will look for more reasons to be hurt. That is a clear indication the root's got a problem.
Right. Yes. I mean, you understand that there's work to be done, but you put the work in on the opposite side to get where you are. All right. So, I mean, again, you can't blame anybody else.
No. Because hopeful people will find reasons to be hopeful. Happy people will look for the happiness at the same gathering, the same table, and have a different experience.
Right.
Different fruit.
Right.
Based on what their glasses are.
Yes.
So how you respond and react to all of that comes from your root.
That's exactly right.
Right.
That's
and
exactly
you
right.
may respond in, who knows what, various ways, but if you hadn't been working on your core beliefs and your mindset and your habits and all those things, your connection with God.
Right. Oh, exactly.
Well, sometimes it's not just core beliefs, it's core wounds. Because these roots are so deep, they go back to 20 years ago.
That's true. If you haven't done any work there, that's very true.
Well, we're exotic cocktails, right? We talk about that
Yeah.
all the time. We have so many different layers. We have so many different things that we have to peel back. But I think one of the core messages that we're saying here is that don't expect, again, here comes an expectation. You can't expect beautiful, ripe, juicy peaches coming off the tree if the work on the root hadn't been done. All right. So use that analogy however you want to across your whole life, but it's applicable because it's natural law.
So if I'm playing an angry tape, an angry soundtrack in my head, but I'm expecting everybody in my family to show up kind and loving and peaceful, it's not going to happen.
That's
You're
right.
not. They may be acting that way, but you're not able to see it.
Right. Right.
I want the juicy peach, but I don't want to work on the root. I don't want to work on the wound.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
So again, you gotta start thinking a little differently on this.
Well,
whole
you're
deal,
talking
right?
about like inner transformations, right? Is what
Right.
you're kind of getting to, and so this is where spirituality comes into play,
Right.
right? So, Mac, you wrote something down here. I'm going to make you explain because these things sometimes when Mac gives us information, Rev, my brain starts to hurt. I'm pretty good these days.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of training and practice.
That's right. You've been with me a long time,
with Mac, but
You got to get a bigger container to handle max consciousness.
and you may have people like this in your life, and I encourage you to stay with them. Keep challenging yourself. Keep working on that root.
I'm just glad he loves me, man. That's all there is.
So
to it.
spirituality, spiritual but not religious. Like what does that mean to you? Well, and why we wrote this down here? Spiritual but not religious.
You can see lots of other connotations of the spiritual aspect of this. We've talked about it. Be animated and directed by the Spirit, all that kind of stuff. We started foundationally. But, this is a common phrase that, has been kind of up there in the field the last, 15, 20 years. I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious.
Yeah,
Right? That
yeah.
whole thing. And really, it's hard to, even if you look at somebody and you say, well, what does that mean? It's even hard for them maybe to articulate because what I've experienced, if you say that to somebody, the reason they're not religious and they think it's okay to step back and be spiritual is because they just had a bad church experience.
Yeah, it's the wound. It's that core wound.
Right. So now I'm not religious, but I'm going to be spiritual. And my question there is the reason I put this on here is because where's the root and where's the fruit then? It's easy to throw that card.
Right.
It's easy to just say, I don't want any of that religiosity stuff. Okay. I'm spiritual. Really? Well, where did that come from? How did you become spiritual if that's what you're going to label yourself as? And so I think we have to be really careful. I'm just using this as an example because we do it all kinds of ways. This is just an example where we flip it out there and we posture in this whole thing and we think that diffuses the conversation. We think that's enough of an answer. Let's move on. And it really doesn't
There's no
tell the story at all.
self-examination in that at all. There's no willingness to look at your own wound, why it got there, how it got there, and what you're doing to heal it. I think, I'm going to be the SOB here. I'll be the rotten uncle to say you cannot be spiritual and not religious unless you're avoiding the work. The religious part, you've taken somebody else's definition of what religion is, and you've given away your power. Religion means I'm going to work my spirit. I'm going to put the practices and the habits in place in order to cultivate the soil, to cultivate the root so I can have the greater, well, not even so I can have the greater fruit. It'll just be a byproduct.
Right.
But so sometimes I'm spiritual, I'm not religious is a great cop-out.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I'm trying to say, that please, realize that if you're doing it, right? If that's you, we're just going to just tweak you a little bit here and say, think about that a little bit, okay? And think about how you would respond to somebody that told you that, right? How could you help them see that maybe the unseen, the root? Let's get down to the root here. Let's help one another go to some place that would help them develop better, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, you got me there?
Yeah, and I want to speak to the people that may be questioning God or maybe don't even believe in God.
Yeah.
You can certainly be spiritual.
Yeah.
In my opinion, you certainly can.
We are. It's all that we really are.
Yeah. So, everybody's included in this is
Well,
my
that's right.
point.
That's right.
Well, and everybody can be religious. I religiously get up every morning and have a routine. I drink that coffee.
There's some things I do religiously every morning too. Let me
It
tell
has
you.
nothing to do with God. It has everything to do with
Right.
what's cultivating the environment I want to thrive.
Right.
Well, we're going to get back to the fact there's got to be the work done.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
We've been saying this whole, and you know what? More than zero.
Right.
We love that
Right.
concept. Pick a place to start, and just start to tweak it. Start to replant it.
Well,
Go
we've
in
got
there
to
and
really,
dig it
you've
out.
written one down here that's so
You know.
easy to look at this equation. It's health.
Yeah,
Why is it I'm sick?
yeah.
You know, I love the guy that's smoking the 2 packs of cigarettes a day and he's cursing God why he's got cancer. There might be something that needs to be changed at a cause level, not just the effect.
Well, that's
Well,
right.
and it could be
Dig in.
it could be nutrition, but it could be
in.
lifestyle. It could be
It
genetics.
could be
You could have
everything.
something genetically. That doesn't mean it can't be handled,
Right.
but it's like getting to that root to figure out what it is.
Well, that's the key. And
Could be an environment. Find a different pot.
well, we can put so many different things into this equation, right? All kinds of different stuff: economics, business, health, spirituality, family.
Sports is a big one.
You know, sports.
Yeah, listen to the coach, man.
you know,
Sports is a big one.
And this is a big deal. So, you know, think about what we've talked about. Have some conversations with some, people in your circle, friends of yours, family members, and really, get to the root of this whole deal. We encourage you in it because, again, we're going to go back to Galatians. Do you want a life like that or not? Okay?
Yeah.
I do. But you kind of got to do the work, and you kind of got to be called, called out on it, right?
Here we go.
And so we're going to call you out.
Is that a flute?
So you got to decide to go rogue if your ongoing mission is as we would choose. You got to find like-minded roguers, because that makes a big difference if you find some people that are right in there with you, right? You got to strap on the armor. I mean, you are going to have to do some hard work, and you're going to take some tomatoes over it. You may take some tomatoes relationally. You may just look in the mirror, have a bad hair day, right? Then you got to storm the gates. I mean, there's so much mediocrity out there. There's so much, passiveness. There's so much that people just aren't willing to do the work. And you've got to overcome that. You've got to help others overcome that. Because lastly, what it's going to take is you've got to unleash the unthinkable, gang. You're going to have to plant those seeds, and you're going to have to speak words, and you're going to have to do things that are totally unthinkable for you and for others. But that's so beautiful, right? You're going to get the juicy peach tree, and you're going to be able to have that fruit just dripping right down your face and a smile on your face, and you're going to have joy. So I've loved it this time, guys. Really, really cool, all right? So fun, so fun. We talked about root and fruit.
Mac, you're a peach. You're a peach.
No, wait, you're a California peach.
I'm a California peach. Oh, you guys, so complimentary. So thank you so much.
Some
But
days
guys,
I want to crawl into the orchard of your mind.
you're going to get lost in the weeds then. Okay. So thanks for listening, Rogers. We really appreciate it. My wise guys, love you guys
yeah.
both as always, man. Thanks so much. It's been fun. And next week, I think we're going to drag one out of the archives.
That'll be good.
So you might get some of the Wise Guy duo as we've got some schedule
right.
challenges next week. But tell all your friends about us. We love for you to interact with us, write us some notes, give us some comments. And again, we love having you listen to us. So have a great week, and we will catch you next week. Take care.
Wow, you made it and can now unbuckle. Thanks for listening to Beyond Quick Fixes. It's about your root. A conversation about our cultural problem of expecting outcomes that have not been properly set up for success. Remember to visit the website at gorogue.life for lots of follow-up information. See the show notes for any links to episode content, and check out the Seeing Differently blog. Oh, and of course, tell everyone you know about us and like, follow, and engage. Be sure to tune in next week when Mac unleashes another unthinkable conversation. That is, if you dare.